What's going on, guys? In this video, I'm going to share with you how to get a job at a technology startup. This video is not how to get a job at a big technology company. If you want to go work for Google, just go to Google and type in how to get a job at Google. You'll find tons of results and plenty of resources out there. In this video, we're going to focus on early stage technology companies, although a lot of the things that we're going to talk about are applicable for any type of early stage company. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Ksebati, co-founder and CEO of MySwimPro. And in this series, I help entrepreneurs take their business to the next level. If you have an idea for starting your own company, we'll help you refine your entrepreneurial mindset to take those first steps. If that sounds interesting to you, make sure you subscribe to the channel and give the video a huge like. A little bit more about myself. Before starting MySwimPro, I worked at 4 different companies. 2 of them were technology and both were venture-backed. At MySwimPro, we've grown a globally distributed team across 10 time zones, and in the last year or so, I've interviewed over 150 different people. So I know a thing or two about what it takes to get a job at an early stage company. I first want you guys to understand the big difference between working at a startup and the entrepreneur's mind in hiring a potential applicant to the company as compared to working at a bigger company, because there's definitely some trade-offs between the scale of the company. Remember, a startup is really just a company trying to solve a problem in a previously unproven way. The challenges that the entrepreneur and the CEO face when hiring a team is completely different from a bigger company. Now, there's a number of different stages of company, and it's important to understand the differences so you can figure out where you fit into the model and which company would actually be a best fit for you, the applicant, and for the entrepreneur, the CEO, to hire you anyway. So there's 3 different categories I broke out. There's impact that you can have in the company, and this is ownership of whatever it is that you're working on at the early stage company. There's salary, that's a big consideration. And of course, there's equity, the ownership that you actually take for your work in the company. There's different stages. There's idea stage, founders, seed, series A, series B, C, D. This doesn't necessarily correspond to the funding milestones that you might hear on TechCrunch and things like that, but it gives you a pretty good idea of where these stages lie. So at the very beginning of a startup, you have the idea stage. This is one person. The team there's just this idea, it's a light bulb moment, and something is ready to spark and take off. At this stage, the impact is massive, because if you're the only person working on said problem, working on said idea, then you're going to have complete ownership and you're going to have complete equity, 100%. Of course, if you haven't done anything yet, you're probably going to make 0 salary because you're not making any revenue, you haven't raised money, etc. That's the idea stage. If you're an entrepreneur, that's how you start out. Now, the next stage is the founder stage. Now, this is where you only have maybe 1, 2, 3 people. And if you join the company at this stage, your impact is going to be huge, because really at this stage, you haven't really done much yet. So you're going to own something massive in the company. Your salary could be 0, but it's probably not going to be very high because the company is not generating revenue. It can't be on a market competitive rate. Probably haven't raised a lot of money yet. And your equity is essentially splitting the pie with the founders, with the initial person. So maybe you're going to get 5% equity, 10% equity, 30% equity. If you're a founder, you're going to get a pretty significant chunk. If you're joining between the founder stage and the seed stage, so maybe there's 3 founders and you're joining as the first employee, you can expect a pretty big chunk of equity. That could range from anywhere from 1% to 10%. Really depends on a lot of different scenarios. But you are going to have a huge impact at that stage of the company. As the company gets bigger and you move into the seed stage, anywhere from 5 to 10 people, could be 20 people, could be 4 people, but 5 to 10 is a fair area. Your impact is still going to be pretty big. It's not as massive as a founder, but if you're the first employee, you're probably going to own some part of the company. And I don't mean own in equity, I mean own in product development, marketing, whatever it is that you're working on, you're going to have a pretty significant impact there. Your salary is definitely going to be below market. At this stage, it's highly unlikely you would be working at a salary competitive to other companies in the industry that are much, much larger. Although you should be making money. So if you're not making money, it's kind of crap at that point. So make sure you're getting some kind of a salary. And at the seed stage, your equity compensation could be anywhere from 0 if you're getting paid something, or maybe a little bit higher if you're getting paid a lower salary. Now, of course, for these salary considerations, I'll just put this right here, you are not going to be competitive with the big giants, with the Adobes, the LinkedIns, the Facebooks, the Googles. You won't be making that much at any stage company, but you can be market competitive starting at the Series A stage. So at this stage, the company has kind of figured out what they're doing, and now they're ready to scale up. They need to hire more people, whether it's sales or development or marketing, maybe 10 to 50 employees at this point. You're gonna have a moderate level of impact. Again, the problem that the team is initially set out to solve, they've already figured out some kind of product market fit. And at this point, you can still have pretty big impact, but it's gonna be much less than if someone joined the company at the seed stage, because at the seed stage, you're still figuring out what the heck you're doing. You're trying to find that product market fit. Series A, you've kind of gotten to that point and now you're ready to scale. So your salary is gonna be considerate to that. It will be at the startup market rate. What does that mean? It means you're gonna be below average, maybe the standard market rate in your city, but it's not gonna be that much lower than any other startup that has raised money or is making a decent amount of money. Your equity compensation, anywhere from 0 to 1%, is an important consideration, depending on your vesting and all those different things, which we can talk about in another video. And then there's Series B, and at this stage, quite frankly, I don't even consider this a startup anymore. When you have 50 or 100 or more people, you've got several hundred people working in the engine. Even if the company is only 4 years old or 3 years old and it has 300 people, you've pretty much missed a lot of the other things we're gonna talk about when it comes to the benefits of working at a startup and how you would actually select them. Because if the company has 200 people, is doing over 100 million in revenue, you've pretty much missed out on a lot of the impact that you're gonna have. You're not gonna really learn how to build anything. You're gonna learn how to scale an organization, but you're not gonna really learn how to actually build a company, which for me personally, as the entrepreneur, as the CEO, that is probably the disproportionate benefit of working at a startup in the first place, because you're gonna learn and you're gonna be on the ground level of building something magnificent, a product that can help potentially millions of people around the world, billions of people around the world. Isn't that amazing? So at a big Series A level, Series B, you start to have diminishing impact. Your salary at that scale, if they have several hundred employees, is probably gonna be at around the market level. And your equity compensation is gonna be pretty minuscule. Not to say that this couldn't be worth a lot of money. If the company is worth $1 billion and you got 0.1% of the company, that is insane. As opposed to getting 5% of a company that's worth nothing. 5% of nothing is still less than 0.1% of 1 billion. So there's definitely pros and cons, and you have to do some self-reflection to understand where is your risk tolerance, where is your interest level, and let's talk about why you would work at a tech startup. So I already mentioned it, the impact and the ability to be on the ground level of building something magnificent is the primary benefit of working at an early stage company. You're on the ground floor. You're on the ground floor. You have the opportunity to have this massive impact the earlier the stage of the company. Of course, you're gonna get paid less, you're gonna have more equity, but there's more risk. There's a lot of unknowns. You're trying to figure it out. The next reason to work at a startup is that you get to work with passionate people. The people that work at a startup have a lot of energy. They're really passionate about solving some problem, or maybe the technology that they're working on is really, really fascinating to them, and they wanna have impact in that specific domain. The people who work at a startup are the craziest, the most passionate people in the world. Quite frankly, they are stepping out and trying to change the status quo. Changing the status quo is not easy. It is a grind. You're pushing against what everyone else is telling you is normal. And so because of that, you get really passionate people who are in the startup ecosystem. So that is one benefit of being in this crazy culture of startups. The third reason is you get to learn how to build a company. For me, I mentioned I worked at 4 different startups before launching my own. That is the primary benefit. If you want to start a company of your own one day, the best way to learn how to do that is to go work at the startup company itself, something that you're passionate about, something that you can learn from experienced entrepreneurs. If you want to start a company, you do not go to school to do that. If you want business experience, you have to work in the business. If you want to be a good engineer, you've got to engineer stuff. If you want to know how to do marketing at a startup, you've got to do marketing at a startup. So if you want to learn how to build a company, you've got to work early stage. And to give you guys the inside scoop, personal experience, the earlier stage, there's 2 factors. The earlier stage that you can get from Series A to seed to founder to starting the thing on your own, you will get disproportionate benefit of learning those initial steps of how to build the company. That's part 1. Part 2 is working with entrepreneurs who know what they're doing and can coach you and be transparent with how they're thinking about and how they're executing and growing the company. My goal at MySwimPro is to be as transparent as possible. Everything that we do is very public. We try and share what we're learning, what we're failing, and it's your goal, if you want to build a company, to find a startup that you can fit into this model in early stage as possible with entrepreneurs, CEOs, founders who will be open and will be sharing what it takes to get them to where they are today and their positive outlook for the future. And I have a question for you guys. Why do you want to work at a tech startup? Let me know in the comments. I'm really curious. These are the few reasons that I came up with. but I would love to hear from you guys. Why would you want to work at a startup anyway? There's so many different disadvantages. I gave an awesome video about the reality check of what it's like to be an entrepreneur because it sucks. It's really difficult. There's a lot of challenges. So I would like to know in the comments, part of the video that you guys have been waiting for is actually how do you get a job at a startup? You may understand the different stages of the companies, and now you really know, okay, I want to work at early stage, I want to work at seed stage, Series A, whatever. How do I actually get the job? So here's how to be valuable to a startup. Remember, you are trying to pitch yourself not to an HR manager. Again, if it's Series B in a bigger company, they probably have an HR manager. Ideally, if it's a company is less than 20 people, less than 50 people, you go straight to the CEO. And we'll talk about that, the strategic ways that you can actually get into a startup. But I want to first talk about how are you valuable to a company? Because if you can understand this, you understand how to pitch yourself to the CEO, to the founders, to the VP of engineering, VP of marketing, whoever it is. At a startup, you're valuable in only two ways. As sad as that sounds, you're really only valuable in two ways, specifically for a technology company. You either are building the product or you're selling the product. It's that easy. It's really, we can break it down to two different elements with some wild cards we'll talk about. So the first one, let's dissect that. You're building the product. In the most literal sense, it means you are the engineer. You're writing the code. You're actually shipping the software. You can contribute. You can do those commits, do those PRs. You actually can contribute value to the code base. So if you're an iOS native, Android, backend engineer, all of those things fit into that model. Now you might be an extension off of that. So maybe you're not the engineer, but you're the designer, UI, UX. You can actually make the thing look pretty. You can add value by doing that customer research, that customer discovery, and apply that into the UX. Maybe you're a QA tester. You can make the thing not break or break less. You can support the engineering team in different ways. Now, of course, some of these can get pretty granular. So if you're an infrastructure engineer, your fit at the earliest stage is probably less useful for a lot of, say, consumer-focused products that need to ship an iOS app and get it out as quickly as possible. So there's different degrees of speciality, and in the earliest stage, that speciality is actually less useful. So it's actually better to have potentially less experience to market yourself if you know how to just ship the product and you can contribute in some meaningful way. Now, the second way that you can be valuable is to sell the product. This could mean sales, it could mean marketing, digital marketing, SEO, you know how to make videos, you can build partnerships. If you're B2B SaaS, you can sell to other companies, you have a network in a specific industry. Now, these are the two main ways, but there's also some wild cards that are a factor of both of these. So one of them is customer support and customer success. Any technology company is going to need support, and after a certain stage, the founders are no longer doing support. We have someone at MySwimPro that does this. So it's a merging of the product and the marketing team together, and that's customer support and customer success. Think of like an account executive. So that's an area that people can step into if you have fantastic communication skills, you're passionate about the product, you know the industry. The second part here is domain expertise. So you have some kind of industry knowledge, and that allows you to combine expertise in product and sales because you know the market, and that is extremely valuable. So what you do next is you take your understanding of how you're valuable to a specific company, whether it's on the product side or on the sales side, or it could be customer service, and then you take that and you understand what it is about the company that you can deliver that kind of value for. So you have to directly reach out to the CEO, LinkedIn, Twitter's amazing, you can access anyone these days, and you need to show them how you will deliver that value to the specific company. And the more specifically you can understand that company, what they do, what is the problem they're solving, and from a team standpoint, where are they very strong, where are they weak, and if you can fill one of the voids, that is how you get a job at an early stage technology company. Your goal is to remove a pain from the CEO or from someone on the team. The CEO has the best perspective of where the pain is in the company at the earliest stage. So maybe they know that they need another back-end engineer. They just can't handle it. They have one, or they don't have a back-end engineer and you are a back-end engineer. Maybe they have an iOS app, but they don't have an Android app, and you're an Android engineer, and you know for their market it makes sense for them to have an Android app, and you can build it for them. Maybe they have zero digital marketing, and you're a whiz, and you know the industry better than anyone. You can reach out and help them improve sales. Ultimately, you're trying to demonstrate to the CEO, to the VP of engineering, that you can come in and immediately contribute value. And this is so important. You have to be able to add value immediately. This isn't one of those things where, okay, I'll join your startup and then I'll learn for the next 6 to 8 months how this all works, and then I'll add value. In startups, a quarter in a big company is like a month is like a week is like a day. Things are moving super, super fast. So unless you can add value immediately, and you can demonstrate that by showing your blog, showing your GitHub, showing your Twitter account, showing that you've been able to ship product, you've been able to sell product before in something similar, especially a domain, show your domain expertise, that is how you get noticed at an early stage company. On top of that, depending on the stage of the business, you got to remember from the entrepreneurial's perspective, the CEO doesn't have a lot of time to waste on this. So if you're talking to the CEO, they need to see the immediate value, and you have to communicate as clearly as possible. Even if you can get your point across that you are going to come in and contribute significant value, either building the product or selling the product or supporting the product, the CEO might not be able to take the risk because there's an opportunity cost of their time working with you if you're unproven. So how can you de-risk this for yourself? You can work for free. A lot of people think, no, I'm too good for that. I'm not going to work for free. But remember, from the perspective of the CEO, from how this works in early stage, there might not be any money to pay you in the first place. But if you can come in and show your value, then you can show how you will get paid. So you might be able to get paid on commission. If you're a salesperson, that doesn't really work for engineering, but you can work on commission. You can hustle, put yourself out there. Maybe it's not work for free, but it's working under the market rate. Don't get snobby and say you need to make 200 grand a year, or let alone 150 or 100 grand. Maybe you can work for 50 grand. It really doesn't matter what the number is. Put yourself out there and be willing to hustle. And of course, you could work in a competitor's industry, in a competitor's company. And so you might carry that domain expertise disproportionately by working at the competition or working on your side hustle, on something that is so similar to what the company is that you're trying to get a job at. Those are some ways that you can put yourself out there to a startup company. But we didn't talk about how do you actually choose which startup to work at and how do you find these jobs anyway. Let's talk about it. I would recommend you find the founding team is passionate about the problem that they are solving. That is the best kind of company to work for at early stage, regardless of the reasons why you would want to work at the startup. Any of these reasons are valid. And again, in the comments, let me know why you want to work at a startup. Any of those are valid, but you have to find a team, specifically the founders, the CEO, passionate about not just the technology that they're building, but the problem that they're solving, the market. They have to be so compelled to solve the problem in that market that they're willing to do anything, because that is the most likely determinant of success. They are determined, they are relentlessly resourceful to solve that problem, not the solution, the problem. Secondly, you must be passionate about solving that problem. It might be a really experienced team, they've got a cool technology, and that's all cool and fluffy, but if you don't really care about the product, if you don't care about what the consumer, the end user, whoever it is going to consume this technology, then you shouldn't work for that company. You should really only find a company that you are passionate about the problem, helping a certain group of people with that problem. And if you like the solution, if you like the technology, that's even better, but focus on the problem. Thirdly, you have to be a cultural fit with the team. Now, I'll give you guys a little inside scoop. If you're a CEO, you're gonna be the one who weeds out the people who are good cultural fit and not. It saves a lot of time if you can do some self-reflection, understand what you want, do some research on the company, get to know the team a little bit from online. You can learn a lot these days, and you should figure out if you're actually a cultural fit. If you're not a cultural fit, you're just gonna waste your time because the team is gonna weed you out immediately, because that is pretty much the first thing that a founder or CEO will actually look at. Will I get along with this person, and do they fit the culture that we are trying to build? You also wanna look at the execution and growth of the company, because you want to join a rocket ship. The problem is you don't know if it's going to be a rocket ship if you join at the early stage. If you join at the Series B and the company's already worth $1 billion, the rocket ship has already taken off, and now you're just hanging on for the ride. If you want to be a part of building the rocket ship and understand how you make the rocket ship, you've got to join early stage. So you have to look at signs of execution on the founders. Prior startup experience is definitely a plus. Those are going to be more competitive to work at in the first place because they know what they're doing and they know how to recruit the best people in the world. You also want to look at career fit and the trajectory of, if you work at this company, how it's going to help you down the road. Are you going to work at this company for 2 years, for 3 years? Are you going to learn a particular skill? put it on your resume, get some equity, invest over 1 year, over 2 years, 3 years. Do you want to go in there for the long haul and you're just happy to be on the ride? Think about what company and what type of founders will help you grow in your career. Also want to look at, has this company raised money? Tying into the traction and growth piece right here, if you see a company is growing and signing partnerships and building a massive audience, they probably have capital to deploy. You should try and work at that company. There could be a lot of fluff in the media, which is certainly true, and you might get the wrong impression about a company. But if the company is small and just raised $14 million, there's a good likelihood they need to deploy it and spend the money on something. Could mean they're planning on hiring people. So if you go to Crunchbase, if you scour TechCrunch, if you go online, Hacker News, Twitter, there's a lot of different ways that you can find different companies that are out there and they're actually trying to hire people. I also recommend checking out AngelList. You can find different startup jobs. And at the end of the day, some other tips I want to share with you guys: network, network, network. Because even if you are networking with a CEO or a founder or a startup group, this company may not be hiring now, but they may be hiring in a year. They may know another founder that is currently fundraising and about to hire a ton of people. So you want to put yourself out there. Don't be reactive, because in a startup world, everything moves really fast. If you connect with a CEO and you really click, you could have a job in 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 1 week, the next day. It could definitely happen. If you go work at a bigger company, there's an HR process. It might take a few weeks. It could take a few months. You could be in the queue and apply multiple times over like 3 years, 5 years. I've seen it. And if you're determined and you really do want to work at that big company, you should go for it. However, if you're really passionate about working for a startup, then I definitely recommend you put yourself out there, network, hustle, and be persistent, be resilient. If you get ignored, reach out again. But don't be annoying. Don't be the person that's sending 5 LinkedIn messages every single week. Send a message. If it goes to the CEO, they might ignore it. Hit them on Twitter, hit them again on email. If you message a few times and there's still no reply, you might get the hint that this is not the right time or your approach is wrong. So feel free to reach out to other CEOs, other people who have gotten a job in that approach, whether it was a tweet, whether it was an email or a LinkedIn message, and make sure you're approaching it the correct way, because there is definitely a wrong way to do it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, how to get a job at an early stage company. If you enjoyed it, make sure you give it a big like, and of course subscribe to the channel for more entrepreneurship tips and tricks. I want to leave you guys with a cool video that I did of my TEDx talk, where I took my idea of MySwimPro and turned it into the App of the Year by Apple. It's a TEDx talk, linked in the description below. Another cool video that I think you guys might like is how I took my idea and turned it into a company in 54 hours at Detroit Startup Weekend. Pretty amazing. Check it out, linked in the description. Of course, let me know in the comments why you want to work at a tech startup in the first place and what you're working on if you're an entrepreneur or you have that idea and you want to take it to the next level. As always, take care, stay safe, and keep hustling.